Welcome, folks. Hello, hello. Um, Greetings and thanks for joining us on your Saturday, uh, wherever you may be in the world. And I think I'm very curious to know where the many of you are calling in from. So I'd like to invite all of you who are joining to just briefly introduce yourself in the chat, specifically with what country you're calling in from. And of course, if you are an Equitech Futures alum, would you also let us know what cohort you were a part of, so that we can also kind of get the sense of the breadth of the many Equitech alumni who are with us. This workshop today is not exclusively for Equitech alumni. However, we have opened this up to our many followers. So if you heard about this workshop via Instagram or LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, thanks so much for your interest. We're delighted that you have taken the time to be here on your Saturday, to get focused and ask whatever questions you may have about writing that dreaded statement of purpose, the big SOP. And we'll talk about that. Kind of the framing of the program will be, I have a bit of a presentation to start, that I'd like to walk you through some of my opinions about the statement of purpose. And then we have alumni from the Equitech Futures community who have recently gone through the process of writing SOPs, getting into graduate school. Some of them are still in their graduate programs. Some of them are about to start. Some of them have already finished their graduate programs within the last year or so. But we'll hear from about 7 of our alumni who will share some of their thoughts about the statement of purpose process. We're going to record this kind of opening portion with my presentation as well as the alumni speaking. But as we move into kind of the second half of the program, which will be your questions that we can answer, and it'll be our alumni panel primarily answering. I may jump in with some thoughts. We will turn off the recording at that point so that you have the freedom to ask your questions without feeling like you're being broadcast. But again, thank you for joining. There are a bunch of folks who have said hello in the chat. Great to see familiar faces. And again, for those of you who've been following Equitech Futures and curious about our programming, and particularly curious about this workshop because graduate school is in your future, I thank you for joining us today. So let's get going because we have a lot of information, ideas to share. So just very briefly, for the many of you who have never met me, I'm Thomas Murray. I'm the Chief Community Officer of Equitech Futures. I'm also on the core faculty. I teach the speaking lab in our Applied Data Institute and our Equitech Scholars Program, as well as the Community Action Lab in our Civic Tech Institute. Our Civic Tech Institute, that's right. I have a Master of Fine Arts degree from Virginia Tech. It was about 10 years ago that I was in maybe a little more than 10 years ago, that I was in your position where I was writing my statement of purpose for graduate schools. And I interviewed with about 8 different schools. So that process of finding what is the right match, what is the school that's going to kind of take you to the next level in your professional career, I recognize that it is a closely held endeavor. And so hopefully some of the suggestions today will allow you to put your best foot forward when you're writing your statement of purpose for graduate school. So what is the statement of purpose? It is a critical piece of your graduate school application that will tell admissions committees who you are, what your academic and professional interests are, and how you anticipate that you will add value to the graduate program that you're applying to. Now, this may be a relatively imperfect analogy, but I really believe that choosing a graduate program is a bit like dating, because there are a multitude of master's and PhD programs out there in your country and internationally. And there are many factors that go into your matchmaking with a particular graduate program. Does the school that you're looking at have the academic course of study that you are seeking? Basically, does it teach what you are hoping to learn? Do you have the credentials to clear the admissions process for that school? Is your undergraduate degree complete and with a sufficient GPA? If you have to take a qualifying exam of some type, is your score competitive for that? Do you have recommenders who will write letters on your behalf? Do you admire the faculty who you will work with and learn from? Maybe is there a faculty member in particular who you are hoping will be your advisor? Is the university reputable enough to advance you in your career? Is the school located in a place that you would be willing to live in for some period between 1 to maybe as many as 6 years if you're doing an MA PhD? Are you competitive for the financial aid that you need? Because many schools do offer scholarships and tuition waivers and assistantships. And have you talked to any of the other students in that program? And are they happy with the choice that they made to go to that program? Now, I mentioned this dating analogy because I want to remind all of you that it is not just you sending out a bunch of applications to the top schools and hoping one of them picks you. I mean, ask yourself, would you automatically get into a multi-year relationship with the first person that you matched with on a dating app? No questions asked, just they picked you, so here you go. No, you are choosing them too. And in many cases with grad school, there's a significant outlay of money in the form of tuition, and there is always a significant outlay of time. Graduate school is not a situation where just any program will do. It needs to be the right fit for them and for you. And I can speak from personal experience when I was looking for my MFA program that some of the programs that looked the best on paper felt kind of wonky and wrong when I connected further with the faculty and the current students. So it's important that you figure out especially when you advance to the later stages of the admissions process, whether the school feels right to you and decide whether or not to accept an offer. But first, you have to make your formal introduction, your candidacy for admission. And the statement of purpose is where you tell your story about who you are and why you deserve to be a part of the university's community. It gives the admissions committee the chance to get to know you and understand how you think you might add value to the classroom. And so you might be thinking, great, because you personally have somewhere between 20 and 30 years of life that you can draw upon and that you can express. So let's get started authoring that memoir, right? No. The statement of purpose is not a long document. It's quite succinct. And that's one of the things that makes it so difficult to write, because you traditionally have one full page and 2 at the most to introduce yourself and make your case. We're talking a range of 500 to 1,000, maybe 1,200 words at the very most. And I don't mean 8-bit font, single-spaced with no margins. This should look aesthetically like a document that you would want to turn in for a class. And that means all of those regular things you're used to, right? Regular 12-point font, although you might get away with 11 if you need to squeeze a bit more in. this is where traditional works best. A serif font, your classic Times New Roman, gets the job done in a professional way. You could use a sans serif font, but you want to be sure not to get cutesy. Those fonts that look like handwriting and are particularly graphically inclined. Those can be really hard to read. You want to maintain standard margins all the way around the page. Now, cheating this is a little discernible. You could get away with a little bit of it, but if it's not even, people are going to notice, like, wait a second, they definitely stretched the vertical or the horizontal margins. Different universities will have different spacing requirements, but I think you want no less than a 1.5 point spacing between each of your lines so that it's relatively easy to read, broken up into paragraphs. Now, these are my opinions on this. These are some of my experience from having written the SOP a number of years ago. But the reason I offer these recommendations is because you want to be kind to your reader. You want to think about the fact that someone is going to be reading this and making an assessment on it. And I think it's considerate to keep in mind that whoever is reading your statement of purpose is also likely reading hundreds of other SOPs alongside yours. Now, those of you who have taken my Speaking Lab course know that part of my curriculum is about encouraging you as a speaker to consider your audience. Who are you addressing? How do you want them to react to your presentation? What is the relationship that you are hoping that you will cultivate? These questions are similar with the statement of purpose, although the roles may be a little bit more prescribed, because you are a student, a prospective student who has completed the required competencies for admission and hopefully who has done the requisite research to identify that this graduate program that you're applying for will help you to learn and grow in the ways that you need in order to achieve greater success in your career. So this is your opportunity to speak to the selection committee directly. It is your introduction, and it is entirely in your power to author it. Even in the most successful application processes, there are only so many chances to speak directly to the selectors. The statement of purpose, an interview, whether by phone or Zoom or in person. And if you choose ahead of time, you could reach out to students, the head of the program, for informational interviews before you choose to apply. But otherwise, the bulk of your application is already making the case on your behalf, which means your transcripts from undergrad, which tell the story of that journey in a purely results-oriented way. Your letters of recommendation, which tell of others' impressions of working with you. And if necessary, your testing scores, if you're in a program that requires that, which gives data on your competencies on that day that you took the exam. So the statement of purpose is the rare opportunity to say what you want to say and to make your case on why you want to attend this program and what you can feel you can offer to the university community. By the way, I use that word community actually rather generically here because you are all likely applying for different programs in different disciplines, and what your selectors will be looking for is different from place to place. How will you know how to address those differences? Well, there is a period before you begin writing your statement of purpose where you'll need to brainstorm, be introspective about some questions of why you're applying for graduate school. Why do you want this degree? What are your expectations for the degree program? What courses or features of the program excite you the most? And where do you want the degree to take you, personally and professionally? And there should be a period of research where you seek to find which graduate programs meet those needs the best. This should also include some probing into who teaches those classes at each university and whether their credentials and research interests match with your requirements or not. Because you will be spending a lot of time in their tutelage or on their research team. And so with that research behind you, then you're ready to begin outlining your statements of purpose for the universities that you're applying to. But wait, Thomas, you might be thinking, did you just say statements of purpose, meaning plural, more than one? Because I thought that I was writing one statement of purpose that I'm proud of and represents me, and then dashing it off to each of the dozen colleges that I may be applying to, all that work done and all of that reflection behind me. Well, you could. Plenty of prospective students do that. But while I'm not suggesting that you need to rewrite the entire statement of purpose from scratch for each different school, there should be some customization in each statement of purpose tailored to the school that it's going to. Remember, this is your best shot to demonstrate to the selection committee that you've put thought into why this program will be a match for your aspirations and why you're genuinely excited to consider enrolling there. So you might be thinking, okay, well then, so my statement of purpose is designed to flatter them or to curry favor with them by telling them how great I think they are and how lucky I'd be to be joining their institution. No, because that can come off as inauthentic. Also, academics already know their accomplishments. People do like to be seen, but your curiosity about the mentorship relationship is far more important than your awareness of their pedigree. This document, the statement of purpose, is primarily about you, who you are, why graduate school, why this program, what you are hoping to learn, and why you are ready to pursue this track right now rather than at some other time in your career. And you want to begin with a brief hook, a story, a belief, a quest, something that draws your reader in to know you in a succinct way. You'll want to lay out your relevant experience and the accomplishments that you've had that relate to your continuing field of study. You will articulate your professional goals, especially as they relate to the program that you're applying to. And then finally, you'll want to speak specifically about why you're interested in that school's program and what you think you can bring to the table, why you think you're compatible, why you hope it'll be a match. There are going to be multiple drafts of this, and that's good. Remember, the statement of purpose is your chance to tell your story in your own words, because the admissions committee already has your transcripts, your resume, your letters of recommendation, your test scores. So you'll want to make sure that you followed all of the directions thoroughly, including requirements about word length, page length, margins, spacing, font size. Different universities, if you've already begun this process, can be very prescriptive in some ways about what they need. But you'll also want to proofread carefully for grammar, spelling, and punctuation. Remember that it is a relatively short document, 500 words, maybe 1,200 at the most. And if you've written far more than this, then you'll need to read through your statement again and edit for clarity and conciseness. Less is often more in this process. So you want to articulate your main points strongly, but get rid of any clutter. And then after you have a draft, walk away from it. Do something else, maybe treat yourself for having accomplished such an important task, and then come back to your draft later with a fresh set of eyes. Because sometimes our best ideas come when you're not sitting and staring at the computer. And critically, ask someone that you trust to read your statement before you submit it. Now, for those of you on the call who are Equitech alumni, there are many alumni on our panel today, as well as some others who couldn't be here today, who have offered to volunteer some time over the next few months to read fellow alumni's statement of purpose drafts and offer feedback. Now, this mentorship is a special benefit limited to Equitech alumni based on the availability of our volunteers. So for those of you who are joining who are not Equitech alumni, we hope that you will be able to get many of your questions answered by our panel today. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen because we have some alumni who have recently gone through that process, who I'm hoping will be able to speak in brief about kind of what was important to them in that process, what some of their discoveries are. We'll give each of them just a couple of minutes to be able to share that. And so can I start with Mohammed? Mohammed, let us know what program you are going into, and then if you could share a little bit about the statement of purpose process that you had.
Thank you so much, Thomas, for the opportunity. Hello, everyone. My name is Mohammed, and I am an ADI alumni of 2023 cohort. I'll be studying an MSc in Business Analytics at the University of Birmingham through the Chevening Scholarship. My experience with writing the SOP is I think was quite informative for me. I have applied for 4 different universities during the scholarship phase. And what I noticed that each university have very different requirements than the others. So my first advice would be is doing the research about the university. Go to the website of the university, check what the requirements they need. Some of the universities do ask to emphasize on your SOP, on how you fit the program. Others might require you to emphasize more on like how your previous experience aligns with the requirements of the program. So the first advice will be go to the university websites, do your research. As Thomas mentioned, if you found any previous alumni from that school, that will be really helpful. Reach out to them and ask for any advice. Also, like different universities do have different formats for the SOP. Like for example, Imperials don't require a PDF format of the SOP. They will ask you to copy paste that within the application itself. Others might require some font size, just like what Thomas mentioned. So again, just do your research, go to the university website, and that will help you a lot to exactly give them what they need on the SOP, and this will result on you being successful admitted on the program. Thank you.
Amazing, Mohammed. Thank you so much. Can I pass the mic over to Kexin? Kexin is in the midst of a PhD program at the University of Oxford. Yes. Would you be willing to share some of your thoughts?
Sure. So hi, I'm Kexin. So I was in the Equitech Scholars Program for 2022. And I'm currently in my first year of PhD at Oxford doing computational biology. So I came from a biology background. So for my application, I mainly applied for maybe 4 or 5 different UK universities. I think I applied for maybe 10 different PhD programs and maybe 2 to 4 different master's programs. And for SOPs, I think so different programs ask for different formats, and they would also want you to talk about different things. So I had to tailor my SOPs to different programs. So there are some of them which you don't know the project that you'll be doing. So you will have to pick maybe 3 different projects from the list. And then in your SOPs, you have to address each of the projects in turns, in paragraphs, and you have to explain why you want to do them. And then for other ones, you just focus on one project, or there are also programs where you don't have to pick the project, where the first year is you do courses and then you pick the project, and then you just focus more on what you've done in the past. So I guess one thing I find helpful is to keep like a database, almost like keep a master document of the experiences you have in the past. So you could talk about the past 5 different projects that you've done, And then you would have written them in different lengths because of the different word counts of the SOPs. Like you might have different versions of the text to describe the same project. Some of them may be 100 words, some of them may be 200 words. So it's really helpful for me to keep to keep a log of all the versions I've used. Yeah, and then I would also use things like Grammarly to proof check the grammar multiple times, and also to make the sentence really short, so no more than like 1.5 lines or 2 lines, and otherwise it gets hard to read. That's so far from me. I'm happy to answer more questions later.
It's great advice, Kexin, especially in the kind of bio space and thinking about what are ways that we can leverage some technologies that can also help us with optimizing our statement of purpose. I want to kind of actually stay on the bio thread and move up to Kunal, who's in a PhD program in cancer research, also in the UK, but up in Scotland. Kunal, can I turn it over to you?
Yeah, can you hear me? Perfect. Yes, so I'm Kunal. I was part of the ADI cohort in 2022. And last year, I joined a PhD program in Glasgow at the Cancer Research UK Scotland Institute. They partnered with the University of Glasgow. So I'm in Glasgow at the moment. And I mean, most of the information I was going to say has already been covered by the presentation and by the panelists. But the one thing I will recommend is usually the SOP does require you to talk about your previous experiences. But what often happens is when you write your first draft, you're just listing down everything you did and you kind of describe what you did, which makes sense. But you also have to realize you also have to submit a CV. And the CV already has a lot of the information of what you've done. And you don't want your SOP to just read like a longer CV, because that is usually what happens. That's what's happened in my first draft. I just described everything I did. And then essentially what I realized my second draft in was, rather than just describing what I did, I tailored it to more, okay, I did this project, but what did I learn from it and how can I apply this to the project I'm going to do now? Because if you're applying for a PhD, for example, yes, Kexin was right that sometimes you don't know what program, what project you'll be part of, but sometimes if you're applying to a single PI and you know the project you want to go on, you can already tailor your SOP to, okay, I did these things in the past, but that's what's trained me to do so, and so, which will help me do this in the future. That's why I'm a good fit. So essentially use your past experiences as a stepping stone to talk about how it's helped you and what you've learned from it. So that kind of makes you a strong candidate, because then they know, okay, this candidate comes with these set of skills and knows how to apply them. And they don't necessarily have to be academic. For example, if you've been part of an organizing committee, if you've done some things that are really, need you to be in a leadership position, you can highlight those things, because your SOP just doesn't have to be all of your academic achievements. You can put in a few instances of, okay, where did I do this? Where did I do that? And, it really makes you a more rounded candidate, which is what they want sometimes. And in some SOPs, like if you've done your research on universities and you think, oh, they have a really good, for example, EDI committee that I would really like to be a part of because I'm a champion for EDI. You can say that, oh, I've done this in the past and I think I'm a good fit for the university's, club for this, for example. And I think I can make a big difference in that sector as well, apart from my PhD, for example. So sell yourself as a rounded candidate rather than just, one trick pony, essentially.
Oh, I love that advice, Kunal, especially in thinking about the roundedness of one's application. What are the many things that you're sending in, and how is the SOP an opportunity to say what hasn't already been illuminated in the other parts of your application, especially since the SOP it winds up being limited in how much you can say. Grateful for that. I want to pass the microphone over to Caio. Caio's a scholar of ours from Brazil who's going to be studying a master's in artificial intelligence at the Université Paris Dauphine this fall, having won the Eiffel Excellence Scholarship, which is one of the top master's scholarships awarded by the French government. Congratulations, Caio. I'd love to hear kind of your process on that.
Hi, Thomas. Thank you for the introduction. So, as Thomas said, I'm Caio. I'm from Brazil. I took part in the ESP 22, and I've recently been awarded the Eiffel Excellence Scholarship, which is a very good scholarship to study a master's program in France for who's interested in. So, to kind of go over the process I used a bit to apply to the French universities. And I think it will be interested for people who want to apply to universities in France or out of the Anglosphere a bit, because many things are similar, but some things I've noticed change. For example, in France, people tend to pay a lot of attention to your academic achievements. And if you want to do a master's program in France, there are two types. They can be either industry oriented or academy. That means PhD or postgrad oriented. So, and when I was choosing the universities, I took that into account. And when I was writing my motivation letters, so I applied to this university I've been selected to, and also to two other master's programs and one other PhD program. And for the master's program, they tended to ask you to like say what you accomplished, and taking a bit from what Kunal said, how your experiences changed the way you see, the way you think about the next opportunities that you want to have, like what you want to do as career or as future research. So it's very important to outline that, and yeah, keep it short, keep it personal. For the PhD interview, it was very important to mention that I wanted to do a PhD and why I wanted to do it. But also for the master's programs, if you plan to do a PhD, it's also very important to mention it. So yeah, I think this is what I've got to say. I've also got a document if Thomas lets me share it. Like I wrote like a template for the graduate application that I did, like the template for the motivation letter or statement of purpose, if you will.
Yeah, we can circulate that out. If Anodia can help us circulate that out by email to everybody who registered for this, because we've got everybody's email. So that's great, Caio. Thanks for being willing to share that. I want to pass the microphone over, kind of sticking with this artificial intelligence theme. Sunday has been accepted to a master's in artificial intelligence, an engineering master's in artificial intelligence at Carnegie Mellon University, Africa, and you've already made the move, right? You've started the program. So can I hand it over to you to talk a bit about your application process?
Okay, thank you, Thomas. So Sunday, I was part of ADI 2023. So I think I really learned a lot during application process, especially with the SOPs. Because before now I had applied to several universities in the US. I think all the application I sent in the UK, I got admitted in all of them. And several schools in the US rejected me. So several schools also accepted me. In all of those processes, I have come to learn some things. Okay, so the first one is, like Thomas said, the audience is very important. And even within the academic setting, there are still different audiences when you're submitting your application. when you're applying for a master's program, it has a slightly different audience from when you're applying for a PhD program. And even for a PhD program, there are some schools that the funding is probably controlled by the school, while some is the professor. So if it's the professor you'll be researching with, you need to understand what their area of interest is. There are things they want to see in your letter because you're making a case to them that you're a match with them. Just like he said, two of you want to convince yourself that you are the perfect person for them and they're also the perfect person for you. So it's actually a two-way thing. And in the process, you don't assume you want them alone. They also want you. So you need to also sit back and be able to articulate all your values and make your case properly. So another thing, again, I've also learned is that an SOP is a form of academic writing. So it's not a bunch of descriptive essay that you're just describing what you have done and all of that. It's like argumentative in nature. So you're trying to make a case, especially for what Thomas mentioned before. You have your documents, they have it already, they have so many other things. So it's your time to put all of those things together and prove to them that this is how it is. And in that way, you need to argue properly and follow, best practice in writing and academic writing. Make sure you paragraph correctly, and topic sentence is very important. So you don't write as if you're just describing something. You write in a way that is logical to follow. You use very nice transition words so that the reader will be engaged and guided while he is reading your statement. And you're making a case, so it should be very logical to follow and precise. So that way it will come up to a point that, oh, you really know what you're doing and you're able to prove your point adequately. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunday. All this thoughtfulness about the reader who will be receiving and going through your application hits home too. One of the things I neglected to mention is after I got into my master's program, I found myself in the end of my first and second and even my third year having to help my graduate advisor with the admissions for the subsequent years. So I was somebody who had the tables totally turned on me, and now I was reading the SOPs after having spent years writing my SOPs to different programs. And it definitely gave me as well a sensitivity to there's someone who's going to read this, and that matters. Great advice. I'd like to pass the microphone over to Clinton, who is, in addition to being an applied data alum from Equitech, is also the founder of Nwovu Tech in Kenya, and is going to the University of Aberdeen in Scotland this fall for a Master's of Data Science. And Clinton and Mohammed both won the very competitive Chevening Scholarship. So congratulations to the both of you. Clinton, can we hear from you about your experience?
Thank you so much, Thomas. I think Thomas has already done the introduction, so I'll go straight into it. Yeah, my name is Clinton from ADI 22 as well. I'm in Kenya right now. And yeah, I'm going to pursue my master's at Aberdeen in data science. So I also applied to a number of schools, both in the UK and in Germany. And I think I also applied to a school in Vienna, Austria. Yeah, I got to the Vienna school, the Germany school, but I decided to go to the UK primarily also because of the Chevening scholarship. Yeah, one thing I'd say that I was quite different at is the fact that in my undergraduate I did economics, and for the master's I applied in data science. So obviously writing my SOP was a bit of a different experience because I wasn't really continuing what I'd done. So one thing I'd say, like if you're going to, let's say, apply to a slightly different sort of postgraduate degree, the first thing to check, as everyone has said, is really to check the requirements. Some might say, hey, you need to have done computer science or something related to data analytics for you to actually apply to that particular graduate program. The other thing, some schools might say like, hey, you don't need to come from a computer science degree. You can come from arts and humanities and still apply for this particular graduate school program. So then in that case, one thing that really helped me is the fact that, as Thomas has mentioned, I had some background in data science and data analytics through my experiences at Equitech Futures, but also through my organization at Equitech. So that sort of gave me a leeway and a leverage. And so building experience in maybe a place or a place you want to pivot to might really help, especially when writing a SOP, because it's something that you can talk about, like why you're interested in the program, how's the program going to help you going forward, and how probably your past experiences or your undergraduate degree has helped you equip you for that particular program. So if I'm coming from economics and you're going for data science, then the past experiences might help in that case. So I think I'll add to that. I think everything else has been covered by the panelists who've spoken before me. But one thing I always tell anyone who wants to apply for this program is that you need information, and information means that you need to understand everything from whatever the school is looking for, whatever you're looking for, the alumni, where they go after they finish, the kind of profile that the alumni embody, the professors, and where the areas of expertise and even research might lie. And all this information put together might really help you, first of all, write a good SOP, but also increase your chances of getting into the schools, because then it aligns with whatever you're looking for, since you've got the information. So that's one important thing that I just like to add. Yeah.
Oh, that's great, Clinton. And I also really want to underline something I got out of what you said, which is you're living your SOP right now. Those of, if you're going to take a little bit of time between your undergraduate degree and your master's program or your PhD program, you're making the choices and doing the things in your work life that will be what you can talk about in your SOP. So being thoughtful about that as well. For those of you who may not be applying this year for 2025 admission, but might be thinking more about graduate school in 2026 or 2027, that doesn't mean that there's nothing that you can be doing right now. The choices that you're making ultimately are going to kind of fill that out. I think that's really valuable. The final alum I want to call upon, I deliberately left for last because many of the alumni that we've already heard from either are starting their graduate program or are in the midst of their graduate program. But I wanted to end with someone who has already finished their master's, and that's Maria. One of our very first applied data scholars from Indonesia, who has completed a master's in applied data science at the University of Chicago. And I'm curious, Maria, coming around the end of the master's and being kind of now back out in industry, if there's something from your perspective in the totality of your master's degree that you think now you have some advice to share about the application process.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I just so if we're talking about the application process specifically, I think everyone here already covered like most of the important bits. I'll just add more just from my own experience. I also want to add, like, aside from the master's in applied data science, at one point I also did like an SOP consulting service for like MBA, and I don't know, my clients did get into top MBA programs, so I guess like I did something right there with my with my work. Like he got offer from like IE, SE, INSEAD, and like UCLA. Well, he ended choosing like UCLA, so like I definitely did something right there. So yeah, so I think all the advice here is very good. I think SOP, I see it more like as a reflection of like what is your goal, because in the end, like, why do you want to do this like PhD or like master's program? How can it help achieve your goal? And it's easier if you kind of work it backwards like that, like from like what's your goal, how will the program help that goal, and then you started looking at courses, faculties, alumni. I like the informational interview advice, but I also understand that could be very daunting to reach out to strangers. So my other advice is sometimes a lot of these universities, they do host like information session, and then they won't shy away from inviting their current students to speak in those information sessions. And I would highly recommend join that, because not only you get to listen to the staff, the admission staff directly, or sometimes the faculties or the students experience the program. But it's just like easier to connect with them later on, right? Because like you can add them and like, hey, I attended information, you're this webinar, and like, can I talk more? But yeah, I really recommend that. I attended those were very helpful for me. Other than that, I did apply to some UK universities as well. I would note that one thing I noticed with like American universities and UK universities is that like American universities tend to be more holistic, as in the application process. So they really want to know more beyond like what you do, like other than what you did in school before, like really your experience, because they wanted that like well-roundedness. And I can share some resources here in the chat. So if you are specifically aiming for American universities, US embassies all over the world do offer like advising service. You can access this Education USA website, find your country, and then usually they have like a advising service there that you can contact, schedule an appointment with them. It's very helpful for them. They'll be more than happy to help you find universities and programs that are best fit for you, and tell you more about the culture, and tell you and review your SOP. This is a very, very valuable resources. I find I went back and forth the US embassy then just to have them read my my essays and even practice interview and tell me more about the visa process. This is very valuable. I highly recommend this to everyone. But yeah, regarding what happened like after I finished my master's and go back to industry, the informational interview bit is like is very, very useful, because like because I mean, like, if yes, it's daunting, but if you can practice that, and it gets easier over time, it really helps, because you can talk to the alumni and they can give you valuable advice on what classes you should take. As in, like, you found this alumni who is already where you want to be, and you can ask them like, oh, what classes, which professor should you talk to, which classes you should take, and then moving on, and yeah, how can, like, which classes can help you, like, let's say you wanna, there is like a certain role that you want to get, like, and then you can just ask like which skills that you should get and which classes could help with that. It is very helpful. They can be
one of the things I want to jump in,
yeah.
Maria, and say about the informational interview is I think it also can give you a sense of like fit and happiness.
Exactly.
If you genuinely reach out to a student and say, hey, I'm curious about this program, do you like it there? And you message them in the middle of the term, they'll tell you. And if they don't like it, they'll tell you. You know, they don't work for the university. I mean, they may be supported by a scholarship or something. But the unvarnished opinions that many students will give is what also winds up being helpful. Now, recognize that's their perspective, and you might have a different fit with the, but that's why that's one of the reasons why I think in reaching out, even if it's not an interview, even if it's not a Zoom call, it's just an email exchange, can sometimes give you good information about what it's like to be a student in that program.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if if the program is probably relatively new, there's probably not much information for program. Alumni is like the best resources just to find out like how good is the program.
That's great. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording process because I want to be able to open this up for questions and have you feel like you have the freedom to ask questions of our alumni panel without being recorded.